The second most important decision that I ever made in my life was playing rugby. I can't hear a thing in this. Scrum cap, protect your head. Probably the best thing you've got. This is the most important thing for rugby, wearing a mouth guard. But my second most important decision I made in my life was choosing to play rugby. Over all the other sports I played, like wrestling, football, ice hockey, didn't matter. Rugby became my only sport that I wanted to play. My billion decisions. They took me from somewhere to somewhere else. And well, this was a really bad idea. I played against several of the players on each of these teams. The number 11 here is a good friend of mine, Dave Lougheed. Played with him in university. And the number 9 for South Africa, I tackled him badly in a game when he played for Wits. I didn't know this guy. He was in Cape Town. The two number 4 locks on opposing teams I played with both of them. Kupis Visa for the South Africans and my good friend Al Sharon for Canada. But the hookers, they were the ones I got in a lot of trouble with. That man right there, number 2. James Dalton. He and I got in a punch-up in one of our games. They killed us. They absolutely killed us. There's my buddy Corbus trying to stop it. That guy I don't know. And I know Gareth Ree's father, the number 10 for Canada. I know his father. I met him. He's a nice guy. I didn't meet Gareth, though. Anyways, this is rugby. This is what happens sometimes. Punch-ups occur, you get kicked off. In 1979, I made the second most important decision in my life, and that was playing rugby. Choosing rugby out of all the sports I played, hockey, football, wrestling, soccer, I chose rugby. I decided this is the sport for me. And it really started off in a strange way. It really didn't start at all because I wanted to play soccer for our high school team for the spring sports season. And I just didn't like the players. I just found them, I just didn't fit in. I didn't like it. I didn't enjoy it. And anyways, so I left. I said, to heck with it. And the rugby coach called me, who was a good friend of mine. He was my wrestling coach. He was in the Mexico Olympics in 1968. An amazing guy. And died far too young. Anyways, Brian Heffel. And Brian said, Gordon, why don't you come up for the rugby team then? You know, come on out. You played football. You can play rugby. I'll teach you. And I said, okay, I'll give it a try. I had no idea. Anyways, I just want to show you something. These are rugby boots. These are rugby cleats. The first game of rugby I ever played, and I can remember it to this day, we were playing on a muddy field at Bonnie Doon, and against, I think it was Harry Ainley, one of our local rival schools. And in that game, I remember somebody jumping on my back and me carrying him down the field while he was trying to choke me as I was running. And then most importantly, what really hooked me to the game was I was lying on the ground and a man, a high school kid, wearing a boot like this, stomped on my face. And I thought to myself, this is my game. This is the game I'm going to play. Why? I have no idea. I think it just reminded me of when I was a kid with all my brothers and how we used to fight with each other and how we used to play soccer. For us, soccer really was rugby. We didn't know it was called rugby. We had no idea. For us, you could pick up the ball and run with it. You could be tackled. You could be kicked. All part of the game, as far as we knew as kids. And that's why the neighborhood kids hated playing soccer with us, because we were too aggressive. Anyways, so my second most important decision in my life was choosing rugby above all other sports. And once I chose that sport, I really didn't play any other sports ever again. And I certainly didn't play them competitively because I was so competitive. I was so aggressive. I didn't mind losing. I'm not a bad loser. I just hate losing. It's hard to explain the difference. I'm sure when you've played sport, you'll understand. I was just so competitive. I always wanted to play at the very best. And once I chose rugby, I didn't want to play any other sports. I didn't want to play any other sports. But that decision to play rugby probably is what kept me out of jail and got me to where I am today, and I'll explain that. So, how can choosing to play a stupid sport like rugby be so influential on your life? And really, there's two reasons in this case. There's two reasons, as it relates to me only. Remember, this is about me. This is me being me talking about me. And there's two things that it relates to me in. The foremost, is that I am incredibly aggressive. Always have been. I may be passionate, but with passion comes aggression. And when I was very young, I was very angry all the time. We were always mad at the world. Everything was against you. You know, my brothers and I, it was always us against the world. The police, the rivals gangs, the teachers, didn't matter. We were fighting the world. You could have put us in a nuclear war and it wouldn't have mattered to us. We would have fought all sides. We wouldn't have been helping our side. We'd be fighting them. We'd be fighting those guys. Didn't matter. But so I was too aggressive and too angry. And when I played rugby, and this is just a simple fact, when I played rugby, it was such an aggressive game where you got tackled and you tackled. So I got hit and I hit people. I got to vent my frustration. Real simple. And after 80 minutes, well, when I was in high school, of course, there were only 60-minute games, but as I got into the senior men's and that, it was an 80-minute game. And you vented your frustration. And I started playing in 1979. I played first team rugby for a club side in Edmonton, Alberta in 1979. Okay? I played from 1979 until 2019. So I played for 40 years of rugby. So it really did last through my life. And the first reason, as I said, was because it gave me a vehicle with which to vent my anger and to get rid of all that pent-up energy. But there's a second, more important factor that rugby gave me. Rugby is a social sport. And it's a team sport, of course, right? But it's a social sport, especially in Canada, where it was not one of the top-tier sports. If you're in Canada, if you don't play football or ice hockey, you're sort of at the next level in terms of sports. Whether you played for Canada or not, nobody would know who you are, because rugby was just not well known. I mean, when I started, there were 8 teams in our city that played rugby out of 50. When I left, there were 16. 10 years later, all 50 schools put a high school rugby team together. The point is that, you know, it's a social sport. So when you played, you also hung out with other people. And on top of which, I started meeting people that were at university or were professionals, lawyers, doctors, engineers, what have you, teachers. And all of a sudden, my life changed. Instead of hanging around my brothers and hoodlums and criminals, not good, I was hanging around professionals, people that had gone to university, people who had made careers successfully. And in a sport where I could act crazy, and I did, I mean, the number of times, I mean, there's a picture of me at a rugby park in South Africa, up a thorn tree, stark naked, except for running shoes. Okay? So I could do whatever I wanted, anything I wanted. And I was able to do that. So I could vent my frustration on the field, take out all my anger and aggression out on the opponents, sometimes my own teammates, I gotta tell you, there was times. And more importantly, afterwards, when you're so relaxed and it's just like a peaceful feeling. And then afterwards, you're so relaxed, and then you're hanging out with people that you could just be yourself and do whatever you want and have fun. And just have fun. Whether that's, you know, standing on top of a building, howling at the moon stark naked, or having a drink with your buddies at the bar. It really was just that. And those two things alone made that second decision that I made in my life And that decision was made 20 years after my first most important decision, which was to become an astronaut, which got me into being an astronomer. But I can tell you this, rugby ensured I didn't go to jail because I vented my frustration and I hung around with good people. And so rugby kept me from going to jail, and it guaranteed that while I was in university studying, I had some vehicle with which to, vent all that frustration and anger instead of taking it out on my classmates or teachers or whatever the hell would have occurred if I lost my temper. And it really got me to where I am. It really did. And I played it with passion for 40 years because I loved it. I loved it. I just loved the feeling. I come off the field, I was just drained. You had nothing left. I left everything on that pitch. Win, lose, or draw. I would leave it all on that pitch. And people loved me for it because I didn't back down. The injuries I have, I've separated both shoulders 10 times each. I've broken my nose twice. I've got chipped teeth from someone's punching me, torn ligaments in my knee. I have no ligaments left in my ankles. I've destroyed my fingers and toes. And I hyperextended my elbow. I mean, I've done crazy things, but I loved it because it took away all of that energy that I was directing it at hating the world, and it allowed me to get rid of it, even for 80 minutes. And then for the hours afterwards, you come down and you're just so relaxed, and you could become a human again. You could actually join the human race. And the people you hang out with actually were like that as well. And so it saved me from going to jail. If I would have hung out with the hoodlums I was hanging out in high school, I would have gone to jail eventually. I would have just joined them, done stupid things, stole cars, got into fights, hurt people, done bad things, and I would have gone to jail. Because I played rugby, I didn't go to jail. And because I didn't go to jail, I am where I am today. But I can tell you this, the one most important thing about rugby, get a good proper mouth guard. This, actually, if I'd gotten this sooner, my dentist buddy, Rob Smith, who I played rugby with in Kingston, made this for me. I still use it today. I've used this for 30 years. But the point about it is without that, you get concussions. Thus the reason why I would wear scrum caps after a while, because I had too many concussions. And that is probably the worst injury you ever get from rugby is you can tear the ligaments, you can walk, you can limp, it's okay. But you don't want to damage your brain. Protect your head. And especially with what I wanted to do, I should have wore the scrum cap sooner, and I definitely should have got a better mouth guard sooner. But I've had way too many concussions. It probably shows in my aggressiveness, but I've learned to deal with it. I know it's there, and I carry on. But still, rugby was my passion, and it kept me from going to jail, and it got me to where I am today. An astronomer, a researcher. I've traveled the world. I've played rugby all over the world. My last game of rugby that I was able to play in, I came off the bench as a reserve, loose head prop, in the provincial championships in the premiership in South Africa in Gauteng, the province of Gauteng, one of the top provinces in the world for rugby. And I came off the bench in a thirds game and played at 57. So that's not bad. What are you going to be doing when you're 57? The Jira Foundation will produce more videos like this. Please like, share, or subscribe if you enjoyed this video.